Have you ever wanted to soar through the skies? To lift off from the ground in one motion, to dart off like a bird or a plane, to abandon all earthly tethers and be free, to be a hero, a flying savior of those in peril. Have you ever wanted to get free parking?
Identity confirmed. Access granted. Welcome, Walter K.
What the fuck is that thing? And why did we put it underground? It's literally meant to be an... Having teased my interest in the project in my Helixia video, I've decided to take a look at another completely bizarre and nearly incomprehensible Kickstarter project. The Hummingbird by one Geoff Green. Pitched as an aircraft surpassing the qualities of any airplane, helicopter, VTOL, or hot air balloon, and backed by an engineering professor from Memphis, the Hummingbird might have sparked some genuine interest if it didn't also look like this. How two grown, educated adults would decide that these drawings, seemingly made in Microsoft Paint, would suffice for such a serious endeavor is anyone's guess. At the very least, they weren't the first to pull something like this on Kickstarter. Since back in the day when iDubbbz covered this project, he focused greatly on the video and not much else. Despite how massive the project was, I think I'll start by filling in for him a little. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Kickstarter Crap. Today the piece of crap we're gonna look at is called the Hummingbird helicopter / airplane. Cut the cost of flying, and then it has 3 exclamation points after the title for some reason.
Hello, my name is Geoff Green, inventor of the Hummingbird.
My name is John Hochstein. I'm a professor of mechanical engineering, and I've been working with Geoff on this exciting new aircraft. We believe that
they have some pretty significant credentials there. I'm sure that their invention is up to snuff.
You've probably heard of the golden hour. If you can get a serious accident victim to the hospital and get medical care in less than 60 minutes, you dramatically increase their chances of surviving.
How greatly do you improve like accident victims' chances of surviving if you rotate them violently? Does that help them, or is that a problem? I don't know. I'm not a medic or an engineer. This guy's an engineer, so I think he knows a bit more than I do.
We built a small remote control model of the Hummingbird.
Is it just me, or does this look a little bit different than the other thing we saw? That does not look like the Hummingbird. That just looks like... I'll be honest, that just kind of looks like a plane.
I took some video here on a local highway, got the car up to about 60 miles an hour, and speeded it up in the computer to a speed that a normal conventional helicopter would fly. This is what it would look like if everybody on the road was driving at helicopter speed. Now let's take a look and see what it would look like if everybody was driving at Hummingbird speed. Now we can't drive this fast on the ground. We all know it wouldn't be safe, but we can fly this fast in the air.
So we can't do it on the ground because it wouldn't be safe. It wouldn't be safe for people to drive their cars that fast. But having like hundreds and thousands of amateur pilots, you know, flying this weird rotating contraption there and around and back and shit, like zooming across the sky like swarms of these fucking things, as many as you would see cars on a road, that's going to be completely safe, right? There's, you know, amateur pilots never crash like regular planes and helicopters, do they?
And that would be a lot safer for everyone involved.
I think we're going to be done with the video for a little bit. I am going to go back to it when I'm talking about, like, some stupid shit later. But for now, let's just take a look at the rest of the project. So, as we can see, it did not succeed. It got $435 of its $20,000 goal from 8 backers. I kind of have to assume that Geoff and the good doctor here, gave some money as a part of that. I believe there's actually 4 people on the team, so the potential number of genuine backers on this project was 4. And there's a shock factor when, the video is shit, but if you don't watch it all the way to the end, and then you do just a little bit of scrolling down, and there it is in its full glory, it's like a punch in the guts, really. Again, there's 2 to 4 people on this team, and they made this. That's right, skip the big airport runways, long lines, and parking garages while slashing the cost. Get the speed of an airplane with the convenience of a local helicopter at airplane prices, or maybe less, no runway. The Hummingbird lands like a helicopter almost anywhere, including an endless number of close-to-home areas with free parking. People were talking shit about this entire paragraph here. Helicopters can't just park wherever the hell they want. Hell, if you're going to have hundreds of these things just flying across the night sky or whatever, you're going to need a lot of essentially helipads for these things to land. You can't just land in random parts of the city. That's still illegal. The fucking project is massive, by the way. Ian did not come close to, covering just how ridiculously, detailed this project is for the piece of trash that they're making. But what I think my favorite part here is how he has this section called Problems and Solutions, right? And in these Problems and Solutions sections, he basically posts images of, better vehicles. Like, we're supposed to look at, this car, this luxury car here, this VTOL cargo plane, and this helicopter, and we're all supposed to go, but that sucks, because we have this to look at instead. I don't know what he was trying to achieve with that. Right, so their only achievements up until that point had been creating this, remote-controlled thing, which, good on them, but he even talks about some stuff that sort of really explains that even the remote-controlled thing is flawed as hell. I like the use of the little hummingbird, page break things. It's cute. So, what does Geoff himself have to say about life? Let's take a look at his profile here. As the son of an intelligent father, I grew up in a home where I could get an answer to just about any question that I ever had. My father had a pretty good home shop, so a good friend and I built many things from scrap, like go-karts, and repaired anything broken that we could buy cheap. Little did I know that I would grow up using a good bit of that knowledge in my work. When I was about 20, I started building and flying remote control airplanes and took a few hours of real flight lessons in a 2-seat small plane. Now I build my inventions with better shop equipment like our 6-foot by 12-foot CNC plasma cutting machine. He has access to a lot of heavy equipment, but I don't think he ever built the Hummingbird with it. He built some other stuff. He mentions being an inventor. He has 2 patents. The first one, U.S. patent number 6575050, a new set of backhoe controls with an intuitive joystick for 1 or 2 hand use. The second, a large river turbine known as the Green Turbine, number 8763386, granted July 1st. This. Okay, I think we've seen enough of the project for now, right? Because here's where I have to go into the slight nitty-gritty of things with regard to physics and, like, since I think it's understandable if you don't really care for going into the weeds that much and you can just look at the damn thing and say, that looks stupid, I don't think that could even fly. You know, you're free to skip ahead a little bit in the video, back to the conclusion where I'm going to talk about his, like, other projects and where they went anywhere and if I know anything else about Geoff. Also, like I said, I'm not exactly an engineer, but this guy is, and he made this, so cut me some slack. Now, let's start with the basics. The Hummingbird is meant to replace the airplane, the helicopter, and the VTOL. And at first glance, it sort of seems most similar to a VTOL, and it is, but not like in the traditional sense that we think of those vehicles. For a start, let's just talk about how things fly in the first place, how they stay in the air, and, you know, achieve both lift and thrust. And, you know, on top of that, why they're good or bad in certain scenarios. For a start, well, a plane needs to go really fast to get up into the air, hence why it needs to get, you know, a runway. It needs a run-up to get really high into the air. You know, the runway can be even several kilometers long, depending on the size of the plane. Smaller planes obviously need less lift because they weigh less. The way that a plane generates lift, in a very rudimentary sense, is that it does so with airflow. Essentially, the wings are very slightly angled and shaped in a way in which there is more resistance met underneath the wing, more pressure, which lifts the plane up. There's less pressure on top, and it just generates lift. And planes take off at an angle because the angle of attack increases the amount of resistance met by the wing from the wind, and that's sort of what generates lift. And then once enough of that is, you know, generated, it sort of evens itself out in a way where it can sustain a horizontal flight path. Essentially, airplanes are really good for passenger travel, for long distance travel, but, you know, they aren't great for what they're sort of touting for the Hummingbird, which is like rescue operations, because, well, you need that place of running up, you need a place to land a plane safely, and you can't hover in the air like a helicopter can. Now, obviously helicopters don't fly in the exact same way that a plane flies, but they utilize a very similar principle of airflow, and essentially if you look at the rotors on a helicopter, you can kind of see them from a certain angle as being like very long and thin wings, if you like look at them from sort of that direction, right? They're like tiny wings, and so they also generate lift in this way by rotating and causing airflow, right? Which again adds more pressure underneath the rotors than there is above the rotors from the air. It can then sort of change the angle of the lift and the thrust by angling the rotors themselves, with it's like this doodad, and you know that changes whether the helicopter is generally going forward or backwards, or in fact, you know, hovering in place like you might need for rescue operations. Now, they are correct in the fact that a helicopter will generally be slower than a plane, you know, at top speed at least, despite being quicker to take off, to land, being able to hover, and so on. It'll generally be very slightly, or in some cases rather significantly slower than an airplane, due to the fact that, well, in part due to the fact that a helicopter's rotors are simultaneously generating both lift and thrust. It's sort of like a divided thing between the two. And so the Hummingbird, which lifts off with rotors and then rotates to become a plane, is, you know, in their mind, it suggests that this is going to be a much faster mode of transport that can also land anywhere like a helicopter. Now, helicopters themselves are a type of VTOL, but when you generally talk about VTOLs, which stands for vertical takeoff and landing, you traditionally might think of jets and other airplanes which can take off vertically and then just fly off in a horizontal sustained flight path. And generally speaking, VTOLs will most of the time achieve this by having either two sets of engines or rotors or something that one set generates lift and the other generates thrust, or they will have a set of these engines or rotors that can rotate, either all of them rotate or some of them rotate once it's already in the air, and that's what generates this forward thrust that helps it sustain this horizontal flight path. In fact, looking at the patent, which we're going to check after I'm done rambling here, he does in fact flex that the Hummingbird has the advantage over those traditional VTOLs because you don't need either a second set of engines or rotors, which would be heavy, or a motor that can then rotate those engines or rotors, which would also increase the weight. But by rotating the entire vehicle, you're sort of skipping out on additional weight and additional cost. Let's just start unpacking the claims made by the Hummingbird team about the vehicle. 1, there's speed. 2, there's practicality and the ability to land anywhere you want. 3, its usefulness in rescue operations. And 4, and this one's really interesting, the fact that he talks about this sort of invention and patent as being a breakthrough of sorts. It's not. I can essentially address all of the 3 major claims in one fell swoop here. The Hummingbird is meant to combine the flexibility and takeoff speed of a helicopter with the high speeds achievable with winged aircraft. If you do cursory Google searches, you'll find that a commercial plane might fly 3 to 5 times faster on average than a helicopter, but these speeds vary greatly, and in fact single-engine airplanes might achieve speeds roughly on par with the average chopper, perhaps a bit faster if the engine is powerful enough. That said, the Hummingbird appears to be a twin-engine aircraft, not commenting on the quality of those engines or their design, of course. Now, that said, the speed is impacted by practicality. You see, the entire thing needs to rotate to achieve this horizontal flight. And you can't really do that immediately like he does in his pitch video by rotating the goddamn image as it's immediately taking off the ground, because you need to achieve a certain height to actually just fly through the air and not crash into things, or people, or whatever. And it certainly couldn't just take off at maximum speed, especially if it's meant to be a rescue vehicle. It needs to first generate some lift, get into a comfortable height, then slowly and gradually rotate in order to not kill the people inside or to not tilt over too much and crash back into the goddamn ground. I genuinely do not believe this thing would be faster to take off than a helicopter. In fact, I'm not sure it would be faster to take off than a plane. Now, landing is an interesting thing here, because obviously the thing can't land on its side, and it also can't just turn on a dime and then land. Just logically thinking, if you need to take off in this gradual rotation, that means you need to also do the same thing for landing. You need to then rotate back upright, also gradually, going up into the air a little bit further, and then landing. And I said a little bit further, I'm being facetious here. Because realistically, if the rotation has to be as gradual and virtually the same as it was when taking off, you might as well have to go up twice as high as your cruising altitude. And then, once again, land gradually all the way back to the ground like a helicopter would. That is not going to be very practical, very quick, and in fact is going to take insane, calculations and piloting skills to figure out the point at which you need to begin this rotation process in order to properly land where you're intending to land. It's not just going to be a matter of, finding free parking, it's going to be landing where you need to fucking park. And not just that, you need to do all this rotation and calculations not once, but twice. Once when you take off and land to pick up your rescue target, and then again to lift off with this rescue target and do the same thing back to where you began, or like at a hospital or something. Now, how about this whole breakthrough thing, this being a sort of new revolutionary concept that Geoff has come up with by talking to his pilot friends? Well, an aircraft that can take off vertically and then fly like a plane isn't exactly insane. In fact, it's pretty obvious after you've made a plane and dealt with runway construction and costs, and pretty obvious when you're thinking about putting planes on boats. Vertical takeoff was a big thing before, during, and after World War II, with countries all across the globe toying around with different concepts. Hell, a rocket is pretty similar to this type of vertical launch, as it takes off vertically and tilts itself into a horizontal flight path. But there is in fact a specific type of VTOL aircraft which is basically just a Hummingbird. These types of aircraft are called tail-sitters. Manned ones were experimented with in the 20s, 30s, and 40s by Nazi Germany, France, and the US. In fact, the first concept for this type of vehicle, which this first person to patent the concept called it a helicopter plane, was Nikola fucking Tesla. And remember how I talked about the gradual process of taking off and landing that stems from the whole thing needing to rotate? Here's some footage of Convair XFY Pogo doing exactly that. And in fact, here's him saying that their remote control plane had to do the exact same thing.
Position on a tabletop, we gave the command to rise, it lifted almost straight up. We gave the command to roll forward, the plane rotated forward, it picked up speed as the helicopter blades transitioned into a propeller position. It flew several circles. We sent the command for it to return to a landing position. Sure enough, it slowed down and went into a nose-up position, gave the command for it to land, and it settled back to the table. A very successful first test flight.
In reality, people already tried this concept in the past and decided it just didn't really work nearly as well as regular planes and other kinds of VTOLs. Didn't stop Geoff though. Geoff's Hummingbird, made in association with Dr. John I. Hochstein, professor in mechanical engineering at Memphis University, might then seem a bust and a showcase of his failings as an inventor, but perhaps not entirely, as one of the only things you'll find when looking up Geoff's full name is a page dedicated to his filed patents on Justia, a site which collects legal information around the US. Note that one of the patents that he's mentioned is not here. One of these patents, though, filed but seemingly not granted, is for the Hummingbird, described on his page as a high-speed VTOL aircraft. The patent was filed back in 2014, around the same time as the Kickstarter was launched. It's unclear if and why the patent was outright rejected, but I would hazard a guess it had to do with the terrible illustrations, or perhaps the fact that its descriptions didn't sufficiently elaborate on its operational capabilities, or set it apart from other tail-sitters. In fact, in their pitch video, their remote control model of the Hummingbird looks completely different from their paint drawings, meaning that its specific design was never set in stone either. He does, however, have a successfully granted patent for a large water turbine. Remember that weird collection of PVC pipes and whatever else in his backyard in the pitch video? Yeah, that's what that was. He filed the patent in 2010, had it approved in 2012, and by 2014 it seems he had an entire thing ready for deployment. Its purpose? Getting plonked into the Mississippi River to generate power underwater.
A Memphis inventor says don't underestimate the power of the mighty Mississippi. He's designed a device that he hopes will provide electricity to thousands of homes here in the Mid-South and beyond.
Jeffrey Green is a local inventor with a global idea.
This is my dream coming true. I'm happy.
He's designed what he calls the green turbine. What does this 3-ton spiral of stainless steel with propellers do?
This will generate electricity from hydrokinetic energy, the flowing current of a river or ocean current.
I already spent too much prep on this video learning about how planes fly, so I'm not going to go into what makes this turbine special. It was big though, but not big enough. Apparently he had plans to shove even more massive ones into the Gulf of Mexico and power 1 million houses. How did that all go? Well, it didn't seem to go too far actually. Whatever roadblock Jeffrey had encountered, it doesn't seem the project went past test turbines being put into the Mississippi River. However, Jeff's company, Green Turbine LLC, was eventually rebranded as GT Hydrokinetic LLC, which seems to be operating to this day, though I can't confirm or deny Jeff and John's current involvement, as the leading roles seem to have been given to other board members from Memphis. And that's kind of it. Perhaps somewhere, using funds from his research into turbine engines, Geoff is toiling away in secret, creating the perfect aircraft. And when I say perhaps, I mean definitely, because it's here. I had it in the opening of the video, that's the bit. We're doing aircraft. Whatever, just shove me in there and let it rip.
All systems operational. Ready for liftoff. Three, 2, 1, liftoff.